Timol died in the early hours of the morning and not in the afternoon, as police claimed. This is according to witness testimony at the Ahmed Timol death inquest. Muhammad Ali Tokan testified that the events took place in the morning hours as he was filling petrol across the street from where Timol died. Tokan said he heard a loud thump but was rushed away by police officers. He only came to know who fell from the 10th floor when it was reported in the newspaper days later. The next witness, Ronald Kasrils, then a member of MK and SAPS's testimony, covered the way in which the SACP recruited colleagues and trained them to handle hostile police situations in South Africa. He testified that prison time would have been like a badge of honor for Timol and that suicide does not make sense going through a document that pointed out some of the irregularities.
There would be a breaking point, and there was an expectation that detainees under torture might break and reveal information.
Exactly.
Was there an instruction, or perhaps I should say a doctrine or policy on the part of the South African Communist Party, or perhaps even the ANC, that members who were detained should rather commit suicide than betray the organization?
Your Lordship, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And if I could add, if that were the case, then people like Mandela and Sisulu and Billy Nair, and we could reel off name after name after name, would have attempted something of that kind possibly. But absolutely not. The key thing, if one was a Mr. Timol or a member of his unit, would be, comrades, try and hold out. If you are captured, try and hold out for at least 24 hours, 48 hours if possible, so that those who you've been working with, by that 24 hours, you're working closely with them, you know their family, etc., you would be alert to the fact that individual A, B, or C has disappeared, is likely to be under arrest, and then everybody was under instruction. Do not be a hero. That is the time to run for it. We would have prepared people with the ideas of how to disguise and how to make for the border. And we knew our borders very well, Your Worship, so we would say such and such places are where you could quite easily cross into a neighboring African state.
They were not thinking necessarily of themselves. They were taking the larger picture and the bigger purpose that they were there for as their main driving force.
Yes, Your Lordship, that is the case. People becoming involved in a struggle do see that higher level of sacrifice to the people as a whole.
And as history has shown us also, to the extent that some of them died for the cause.
Exactly, and ready to die if needs be.
What was the position in the training of the recruits in relation to escape?
Well, if there was a possibility of escaping, that would be encouraged, Your Lordship.
Even if that escaping might lead to your death?
No, I'm talking about a realistic escape, not an escape by diving out of the window 10 floors up from the street. That's not an escape. So, sorry, with all due respect.
And I'm not trying to be disrespectful,
Yeah.
but if a person escapes and he tries to get away, there's always a risk.
Of course, but there's a risk. In relation to diving out of a window, there's no risk. You're going to die, horrible death.
If you know where you are and if you are orientated, most likely.
Well, if you know where you are, if you're on the ground floor and there's a window open, there's a possibility that you can escape that way, yes. Fake complaints and actions against the suppressors. We never referred to the apartheid adversary or enemy as suppressors. We refer to them as oppressors. The writing is always the oppressor, the struggle against oppression, the struggle against the oppressor. So the term suppressor there jars. And then rather commit suicide than to betray the organization. Your Lordship, this is not English. Commit suicide, rather commit suicide than to betray the organization. English, as is written in this and the other documents, would be rather than betray the organization. Now, I'm not a fluent Afrikaans linguist, but it seems to me that this is how an Afrikaner might translate an English term, rather than to betray the organization. We would simply write rather than betray the organization.
Our struggle in terms of dealing with historical injustices has never been about revenge. Has always been about correcting the historical injustices. That's why we established a TRC. In the TRC itself, it has its own weaknesses. But in the main, we were able, at least one way or another, to establish the truth. Because all what we needed, we wanted what happened. And I think many families have closed the chapter of what had happened. Many, they still don't know what happened. Their sons and daughters are still lying buried outside of South Africa. The good thing that we must learn from the reconciliation in TRC in particular is that those who suffered, the oppressed, are the ones who were the first to agree and accept the oppressor. One day, truth shall come. And we hope even if police, they will stick to the script of 1971, of 1972 inquest, one day the truth will come out of what happened to Timol and others.